To start your watercolor galaxy painting, you'll need a piece of watercolor paper, a piece of construction paper that we will be using as a painting mat, some tape, and a pencil to write your name. First, flip your paper over and write your name with a pencil on the back. Don't forget to write your class code below your name. Then you can flip your watercolor paper over, and we're going to tape our watercolor paper to our piece of construction paper, which we're using as a painting mat. So we're going to use some masking tape to create a border around the edges. This will end up leaving the edges of your paper white. When you do this, you want to try to make it as straight as you can. So don't have some white showing on the edges like that. You should try to make it even all the way across before you press it down. I noticed that that's not completely even, so I'm going to peel it off again and then press it down when it's about the same size all the way across. I don't want my border to be slanted too much. Then I'm going to do the bottom and the sides the same way, making sure that it's the same width all the way across. And then the same thing on both sides. We will end up taking off the masking tape when we're done with our painting, so we'll have a white frame around the edges. This will also keep the watercolor from going underneath the tape. So it's creating a tape resist. After the tape border is done, then you're ready to start painting with watercolors. We're going to leave our watercolor paper on our piece of construction paper while we're working on it and not take the tape off until it's completely dry. The watercolors we will be using are in palettes in the following color order: black, then purple, which look very similar, but when you add water, you will see that they are different, blue, turquoise, green, and at the other end, pink. To paint our galaxy, we will be using the wet on wet watercolor technique. Remember, wet on wet is when you paint a small area of your paper with water or a light wash of watercolor, and then you drop and blend other colors into that area. This helps the colors bleed and blend together. The most important part of wet on wet watercolor is that you use enough water to allow your colors to mix together. It is also important to work on a small area of your painting at a time, rather than painting the whole paper one color and then trying to blend the colors. You don't want the paint to dry before you get a chance to blend. Our focus here is creating an interesting galaxy sky that shows depth and color mixing. You should try to use most of the colors in the watercolor palette for your painting. One thing to be careful about is the amount of black that you use in your painting. Black has the most pigment, meaning it is the strongest color, and it can easily take over the other colors. So just use a little bit of it at a time. Remember, you can always layer more colors on top, but it is harder to take away color completely from a watercolor painting. Once your watercolor painting has dried, then you can remove the tape from the surface that you taped it to. So I'm going to carefully pull off the tape around the edges, and I may get a little bit of paper that comes off as well, but it should peel off pretty easily. The important thing here is to just go slow and pull the tape in one direction. Then you can throw away your tape, and let's make sure that we have written our names on the back of our paper. I didn't do that, so I want to make sure that I do that now before I add splatter paint on top. Don't forget to write your class code below your name. When you do splatter paint, we're going to put our painting inside of a cardboard box to catch some of the splatter. Also, you want to make sure that you roll up your sleeves and that you're not standing too close to anyone. We're going to use some white liquid paint, and you'll need a water cup and a paintbrush for this step. Make sure you put the lid somewhere safe. We're going to put it back on when we're done, and you're going to want to get a lot of water on your brush when you do this. So make sure you push your brush around in your water cup, and then you're going to dip it into the paint, and you might want to put your brush back into the water cup a little bit. We want to make sure that we're watering down this paint because it will splatter more easily. Once you think that you have enough water on your brush, then you can go ahead and splatter paint. To splatter, I like to hit the gold part of the brush. We also always want to point our brush towards our paper. Never point it up or at someone else. You want to point it in the direction that you want the splatter to go. So I'm pointing it at my paper because I want it to go on my paper. This looks pretty good, but I think I want to add a little bit more. I'm going to get some more water on my brush and a little bit of paint, and then I'm going to splatter a little bit more. Remember to keep your brush pointed at your paper and not higher in the air than the edge of the box, so close to the paper. I'm going to keep doing that a little bit more until I like the amount of splatter that I have. Once you're done with your splatter, you can carefully take your painting out of the box and put it on the drying rack to dry. Remember, you can't take away any splatter, but you can always add more. So just do a little bit at a time until you really like it. I hope you had fun creating a galaxy painting. I can't wait to see how yours turns out.